Welcome back, boys and girls. It's your boy Menace here, and I have for you today the first video in a new series that I'm calling the War College series. This episode is going to be about the 11 offensive war teams that I'm currently using, why I'm using them, and the strengths and rankings of these teams. Hopefully, this will allow you to know where to put your efforts and where to just go ahead and use a team versus hold back a team for a real target. So to start off with, I've broken these teams down into 4 different tiers of the war offense. The first tier is going to be the new and developing teams. There's currently 2 teams that fall in this category at the time of this video, which we will get into. But these are the teams that are fresh out the gate. People are still gearing them up. They're not really sure where to use them yet, and it's just still kind of fun to play with. This is the new and exciting stuff that we're figuring out where to use them and how to use them and all that good stuff. The next tier that I have for you is the basic defense counter teams. These are the teams that counter the defenses that you're going to see in pretty much every single room of an opposing alliance. They're the non-meta teams. They're kind of just the filler defense, like the front end stuff that you would use to clear that out. And they're very good teams, and they're highly versatile, but they're just the teams that you don't got to go too deep into. The next team here I have for you is going to be the non-meta but still strong attack teams. These are the teams that used to be really, really good and even the best offensive teams out there, but through just natural attrition and just more and more teams coming out, they kind of fell down a little bit, but they're still going to be your teams that you've previously invested into. You've got them geared up. You've got them really strong. They can counter a lot of things, but they're just not your favorite as much as they used to be, but they're still really, really good for war type of teams. So there's a bunch of those actually. The next tier I have for you is currently the best war attack teams. These are the tiers the 2 teams that you're going to want to hold back on until you find the target that you really, really need to clear out the way. This is your best weapon, strongest punch type of teams, and these are where your work's going to get done. So what's important to know about the first tier is that these are the new and untested teams. They could possibly do more or less depending on as they get tested and developed, but they're continually needing to be developed to find out their true potential. Right now, you get to use them to kill the lower end teams and to learn the new team's mechanics. So you get to find out what this team can do as you develop them, and as a result, you don't have to go too heavy into them to get them into war and get them into viable to figure out whether or not you want to go deeper into them or not. These teams I would recommend gearing to about level 65, anywhere from tier 10 to 12 before you brought them into war, and then bring their abilities up to at least 664 just to find out what they can do in a real world environment. These stars are basically to be whatever you can get them at. Maybe you got a lucky pull, maybe you spent, maybe you didn't. Maybe the blitzes came around or not, but basically these are the teams that you're gonna be playing with and learning with at this time. So to start off with, the first team that I have for you is going to be the Astonishing X-Men. They consist of Beast, Jubilee, Iceman, Kitty Pryde, and Bishop. I currently have Beast as a healer, Jubilee as a striker, Iceman as a raider, Kitty Pryde as a healer, and Bishop as a skirmisher. Now, Kitty Pryde may potentially become a skirmisher later on, or perhaps a raider because her abilities hits multiple people. But just at her current level in development, I just have her as a healer to keep this team more viable, more to stand up a little bit more in war until I can get them a little bit more developed than they currently are. Now, what I've been able to counter with these teams is Sinister Six so far, Mercenaries has gone against Astonishing X-Men, And so far, Pimtech with relatively ease. None of these have been a real big problem to beat. And again, I'm still testing this team to find out what its true limit is. The recommended T4s I would have into this team before I took it into war would be Bishop's passive for the damage reduction, Jubilee's passive for the speed and damage, Bishop's ultimate because that thing just hits like a truck, Kitty Pryde's passive to get some evades out there, and Jubilee's special to get the assists from every team, every member, and Beast special to get the guaranteed 2 debuff clear. Now, Beast special is very good, but I have it at the bottom of the list because even without the T4 into it, you still have the chance of getting the 2 debuff clear. It comes around enough that you're pretty much keeping them at no more than 2 debuffs on them all the time. So it's a really nice to have, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. So the main points of the Astonishing X-Men are going to be that they're new at the time of this video, so they have a lot of potential still, but we're just still not sure exactly what their actual ceiling is. But so far, I haven't found that yet. They're not a true war team, meaning that they don't get any buffs from being on war offense or defense. They're a raid team that's just really, really good, that it can actually carry over to war and do some damage for you. Now, it's a play-heavy team, meaning that you have to be very engaged in the fight. You have to be paying attention where your blind is going with Jubilee, if Bishop's ultimate is charged, if you need a debuff off of or heal out there from Beast, or if it's okay to go ahead and put the ultimate out. Sometimes you might want to actually hold off on doing the ultimate of Beast and keep everybody healed. So things like that it's a very intensive, like, pay attention to what's going on, to who you're fighting, when you want to use his ability, when you don't type of team. And that's actually what makes it really fun. The other thing about this is that Beast is the heart of the team. Beast is going to be the guy that's going to keep that team functioning. Now, Jubilee may be the legendary and she's got a lot of great abilities to her. Beast is really the one you want to have geared and going for the heals, through the debuff removal, and just through overall use. All right, so the next team I have for you on this list is going to be Shadowland. Shadowland is also the new and developing team. It consists of Daredevil, Night Nurse, Elektra, White Tiger, and Moon Knight. I currently have Daredevil as a raider, Night Nurse as a healer, Elektra as a striker, White Tiger as a striker, and Moon Knight as a raider. I've been able so far to counter Sinister Six, Black Order, and Marauders with this team. It is, however, very, very new, so there is other potential things that I can counter with relative ease. It's just still getting experimented with, but so far I'm loving this team. It's doing a really, really good work, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now, it is T4 intensive to get it truly going to the way you want it to go, but so far, again, it seems to be worth it. Things I would start out with are White Tiger's passive, because you're going to need that speed from the door. Moon Knight's passive, because you're going to want to have that extra health, because it's a very squishy team. You want to have Daredevil's passive for the extra speed. Moon Knight's ultimate to clear all the debuffs and to put that extra focus out there and extra damage. You also want to get White Tiger's special, because her special is going to be doing extra damage per Shadowland, and it's piercing damage, so it's very, very good to clear that early target. Then you want to do White Tiger's ultimate, Daredevil special for the counters, and then Night Nurse's. For me, Night Nurse's T4s are a little less important. They're very good. I'm still going to do them, but just to get them going in war, you gotta get maybe 1 or 2 turns out of this team. I feel like more so that the Night Nurse stuff is going to be more for the raids of Doom as opposed to anything else. But it is a very, very good T4s, and I do suggest you get them. All right, so the main points about Shadowland again is that it's a very new team at this time. It's very T4 intensive, but unlike Skilletary, it seems to be paying off for that investment. There is a degree of RNG with Moon Knight, considering that his ultimate only has a 50% chance of applying debuffs, and on top of that, it's a random debuff. So you're going to have fights where that is just killing, fights where nothing that stuck, or fights where just like mediocre debuffs hit. So far, it seems to be capable of some really big punch-ups, so it really has a lot of potential. And stay tuned to that team, I guess I should say, because it really seems to be doing work so far, and has just begun to be developed. Not many people have them in the 14 range, so when it comes to taking down those massive black orders, it's really exciting to see what this team is going to be able to do in the end. All right, this in turn leads us to the second tier of defense teams. That's going to be your basic defense counter teams. These are the teams that you're going to see everywhere in an opponent's defense. They're going to be the counters to the Avengers, and they're going to be the counters to Shield, and they're going to be the counters to brawlers and defenders, and like those real basic defenses that everybody puts in there just to fill, because quite frankly they're too resource capped to make them massive, but they do the job, and they more or less do the attrition factor. So these are the teams that are going to counter those teams. And the good news behind them is that since they're older, they're going to have various levels of development, but you're going to more than likely have them develop to a usable degree at this point. The thing about these teams is that you're going to just want to use them and move on. You're going to find the counter, use it, clear the room. Don't worry about holding them back. Don't worry about finding that perfect target. Just use them, clear the room, and move on. These teams I'd recommend gearing to about level 71, tier 12 or above, and then the abilities I would get to 664 at least, with some important tier 4s depending on where you're at, what you did in the past, etc. The gold and red stars of these the gold star should be at least, probably at this point in time with these teams, should be 7 gold. And then for them to be truly war viable, they should be at least 4 red. But I mean, that's going to be real dependent on your luck on red stars. So the first team I have for you, as you already saw, is going to be Supernatural. Now, Supernatural is a great war offense team in regards that it is strong. It's fun to play. It's pretty badass, quite honestly. So the team consists of Elsa Bloodstone, Ghost Rider, Scarlet Witch, Mordo, and Doctor Strange. I have Elsa as a raider. I have Ghost Rider as a striker. I have Scarlet Witch as a raider because her main ability is going to be the ultimate that she does that hits everybody. Her second ability is going to be the health redistribution, which means that Skirmisher is not going to do anything for her. You can make a case for healer, but she doesn't do any other healing, as opposed to, say, Mordo or Doctor Strange, who I have healer, simply because Doctor Strange is going to heal on his ultimate and through his passive, and Mordo is going to heal through his passive. So if you were going to have a heal on those teams, I would put it on those two. All right, so those teams are able to the Supernatural is very easy to counter. The Avengers, the Defenders, Shield, even Mercenaries. They defeat Wakanda. Now, none of those teams that you see there, outside of perhaps Mercenaries, are going to be like true, like scary defensive teams anymore. The Avengers could be, but generally, as a whole, people are going to kind of like taper off with them as far as gearing these teams, and as a result, you don't have to go too hard into Supernatural to do so. They're early in clearing a room type of defenses that you just kind of get them out the way and move on so you can expose the Emma or the Black Order, whatever they have in the back end. So the T4s I would recommend for this is Ghost Rider's passive for the health, Doctor Strange ultimate for the 2 reses. Like, I think that's underrated, that people don't realize you get 2 reses out of that ultimate, and the Doctor Strange passive because it helps with the speed. It has him healing every time. They get a passive up, a boost up. So it's really important to have. Additionally, I would have Ghost Rider's ultimate, because Ghost Rider's ultimate is going to be the biggest hitting thing, especially if he's charged. Ghost Rider is going to be 90% of your damage for that team. So just having that, being able to like one shot and heal him as strong as could be, is pretty important. And the other thing I recommend would be Mordo's passive, and that's because every time something dies, it's going to heal your team, where Supernatural, while it has healing, isn't the most healing intensive team. So just, it's worth getting that that T4 passive. All right, so what's important to know about Supernatural? The success of the team is in Doctor Strange and Ghost Rider surviving. Doctor Strange is going to allow you to res people and flip deep and flip buffs. Ghost Rider is just going to be doing all your damage. And quite frankly, if he goes down, you're going to have a real tough time winning with that team. But those two really, as long as they're up, you more or less are going to have success. Now, one thing to keep in mind with Doctor Strange is be mindful of the blind before you use the special. Doctor Strange's basic is unavoidable, so some people get in the habit of realizing, like, hey, he can't miss, and if you go against the mercenaries and you're blind, you tend to kind of take it for granted. You use the special, next thing you know, you've missed, and now you're in trouble. And then Scarlet Witch goes after that, and you're like, all right, well, I can't use the ultimate. What do I do here? I'm still full health. Do I just basic or what? So be mindful of that. The T4s, and like I said earlier, the T4s and Doctor Strange's ult and passive really do matter. I know it kind of hurts the T4 Doctor Strange, but you'll find that it really does open up the team once you do those T4s. This is another team to just use and move on with. So what I suggest is find an Avengers, find something that's going to be okay, this wasn't a waste to use it against. Use it and move on. Open up, get to the next room, do what you got to do, but don't sit there and try to wait for the perfect target for Supernatural unless you have like this highly geared one, and quite frankly, good luck, because most defenses are going to stop anywhere, are going to stop within a killable range of your Supernatural if you gear to the levels I told you to. All right, so this brings us into the next tier of teams. This brings us into the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is another team that is a very, very counterable team for most of your very mid-level defensive. It consists of Magneto, Pyro, Toad, Blob, and Juggernaut. I have Magneto as a raider. I have Pyro as a striker. I have Toad as a skirmisher, which is highly important for removing debuffs when going against S.H.I.E.L.D. and Avengers and things like that. I currently have Blob as a raider, but there's a couple different ways you can go with Blob. The reason why I have Blob as a raider because his ultimate and his special hit a lot of people. So I kind of was just like, all right, let's get some extra damage out of him and get some, like I said, get some vulnerabilities out there. And then I have Juggernaut as a striker. And the reason why I have Juggernaut as a striker is because there's a lot of vulnerability out there. And if Juggernaut's coming through, there's been more than one time where I've had Juggernaut come through with that second hit and finish off the target, finish off the Captain America or the Hulk that I needed him to, and really just open up the fight. So what's important to know about this team is that the counters for this team are going to be the S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers, the Young Avengers, especially with Captain Marvel in there. They do great against BKT or Technova, and they do really good against Pimtech as well. They don't need a lot of T4s, but the T4s that you do put into them are really going to pay dividends. Magneto's passive, Blob's passive for the counters, Toad's passive for the focus, and Pyro's special just to make sure that you're doing extra damage, getting the 2-turn bleed, it's worth it for Pyro special. So what's important to know about this team is that open up with Toad's ultimate. All right, so the first thing you always want to do is going to open up with Toad's ultimate. What this is going to do is it's going to remove debuffs, and it's going to put a taunt onto Blob, which is very, very important for a lot of the teams that this counters. When you're targeting, make sure you're targeting the guys with the with the immunity buff, so that Toad can remove it and that the blind can land, so that way the team can operate like it's supposed to operate. Be mindful of going to the fights when you have defense down, especially if you open up with Toad's ult. It instantly puts a taunt onto Blob, which then has Captain Marvel, more likely than not, use her, or more often than not, one-shot your Blob with her ultimate. Now, the good news is the Blob eats the ultimate, but the defense down, which otherwise he could be just fine with, really tends to make it to the point that he dies, and then you're really in trouble then. So again, no need to save this team. Find a decent matchup, use it, and move on. Get your alliance move in, get them down to the armories and the globals that they're trying to get to. Don't sit there and try to find the perfect target for it. Just use it, move on. The counters for this team are never going to be really massive. They're going to be there, but just get it out the way. You've done your part, and like I said, move on. All right, so now this brings us on to the next tier of teams. This is going to be the non-meta strong attack teams, the teams that you've developed in the past, that you've used a bunch of times, and they just kind of fallen out of favor. They still might be your current strongest teams, but at this point in time in the game, you kind of want to move away from them and start developing other teams a little bit more. Now, you're not wrong for putting love into these teams, but again, the uses for them are becoming more and more limited. They're going to be more just like your, okay, I need a strong attack. What can I throw at it type of teams, as opposed to this is the direct counter. This is how I beat that type of team. So they're going to counter your more developed defenses, the things that they've put in place in the past that used to be the best, kind of no longer are. As you've developed your team to attack, other people have developed theirs to defense, and both of you kind of moved away from them at this point. So they're going to be the teams you use to clear those. You can use them to clear really stubborn defenses and hybrid teams because you put love into them. They're still going to be really good counters for a lot of things, but at this point in time, they're going to be your bread and butter. This is where your work is going to get done. It's not so. These are the teams I recommend to do so. Gear them to about level 75. Tier them to anywhere from 12 to 14 depending on where you put them at in the past, through Dark Dimension development or whatever the case may be. Have them at least 6664 on all their abilities with some T4s into them depending on when you moved away from them, where you're at with them. They should be 7 gold stars and at least 4 red at this point in time in the game. So the first team I have for you on that list is going to be a special little hybrid team that I really, really like, but it does really, really well. Now, I can't say I invented this team in any capacity, but I still find a lot of uses for it, and that is the Baron Zemo X Factor team. So I personally use Winter Soldier, Longshot, Baron Zemo, and Shatterstar and Red Skull. Now, most people will use Grenadier, and they're not wrong for that. I prefer Winter Soldier because he gives crit to Baron Zemo and Red Skull. Since this point of this team is going to be about speed and critting, I find that the more crit you have, the better, which is why all of these guys are going to be Raiders. Okay. Now, I use this team to kill Marauders, mainly. All right. Mainly, I use this to kill a Marauder team. It can punch up very well, but in a pinch, you can use it to kill BKT or Technova. You can use it to kill Avengers. You can use it to kill Brawlers or Hydra. It's going to do very, very well. Find a decent target for it and just lay into it. It is a great team. It's a lot of fun. You're going to be going all the time. And even when you're kind of in danger, you're not. So the T4s I recommend for this team are going to be the Longshot's passive for the speed boost, Shatterstar's passive for the barrier, Longshot special because you want to put, because he's going to be hitting everybody for crit and you want to do a little bit more damage for there. Baron Zemo's passive, Red Skull's passive. Both of those give speed and evades and just are really, really worth it. Longshot's ultimate is going to hit really, really hard. So if you send those against Marauders and you've almost killed Sinister or you've almost killed Strife, when that Longshot ultimate comes in, it's really, really nice to have. And the other thing I'd recommend you have in the war effort is Baron Zemo Special. This is if you send it against, say, a minion in the Hydra or Brawlers or whatever the case may be. It just adds a little punch to that. So I recommend doing the T4 and the Baron Zemo Special. What's important to know about this team, again, is that it relies heavily on speed and crit. I use it as a Marauder killer, but again, it can be used other things. But for the most part, you're going to see a Marauder, so the more answers you have to Marauders, the better. I like this team to do so because it allows me to punch up, and at the same time, I get to control the fight and have some fun with it, as opposed to being like, oh, what's going to happen in a Marauder fight, because that's very RNG dependent. So again, the reason why I use Winter Soldier as opposed to some other options is because he adds crit. His ultimate is a really nice nuke to help finish off that first target. And once you start killing people on Marauders, you either get rid of that Strife or you get rid of that Sinister. It's this team becomes very, very easy to do cleanup in Marauder and on Emma and Sabretooth and whoever else. And again, if you decently gear this team, like anywhere, get them to gear 12, 71, you're going to not have a problem dropping anywhere from like 500 plus Marauders. So you get a lot of bang for your buck out of this team. So the next team I have for you is the very first war team, and I always have a little bit of love for this team, is going to be the Power Armor / Powertron team. Now, for myself, I use Powertron a lot more than I have used Power Armor anymore, but there's still, depending on what you're doing, you may still use the original Power Armor team. So I myself have, this team consists of Rescue, Falcon, Iron Man, War Machine, Ironheart, and Ultron. I myself have Rescue as a fortifier because you really want her to stay up. I have Falcon as a raider. I have Iron Man as a raider. I have War Machine as a raider. And I have Ironheart as a skirmisher because you want her removing debuffs and stuff like that. And you want to eventually give her the extra focus so that defense down lands when you're going against higher ending Marauders and things like that. Ultron you want to have as a striker because you want him to hit twice and taking advantage of some of these vulnerabilities that are getting put out there. All right, so this team I am using currently as my main Marauder killer. It does very, very well. I have a video out there on how to beat them. If you would like to watch it, it's out there. But it is a great team to do so. Power Armor in itself is really great for killing these other ones, BKT, the Avengers, the Brawlers, the Defenders. It does very good there, but I tend to find Powertron as the best answer right now, using this team to take out Marauders. Now the T4s in this team that are very important are going to be War Machine's passive. Now, the reason why you want War Machine's passive is because as you send this against Marauders, you want to have that taunt go on to Sinister when you drop them below 50%. Because if you don't, Strife is going to taunt, and then you're not going to be able to finish off Sinister. So War Machine's passive is definitely, for my money, the most important one. Followed by Ironheart's ultimate to get the defense down out there, then Ironheart's passive to get the extra stats out there, Falcon's ultimate so that way when you do that big massive wave of War Machine's ultimate and Ironheart's ultimate and Falcon's ultimate, you want to make sure you kill them because there's nothing worse than sending that whole wave and then coming up slightly short. You want to T4 all of Ultron. You should have done that when you did Dark Dimension 2, so you're good there. And a really nice thing to have is Rescue's passive for the extra barrier and health, especially for some of those bigger punch-ups. So what's important to know about this team? What's very important to know about this team, and I hope people do this, and this kind of goes without saying, but I'm going to say it just in case, use Falcon's special before his ultimate. The special gives speed. This is a turn-based game, meaning that speed is the most important thing in the game. So if you can go faster than the other guy, you're going to win. So make sure you open up with Falcon Special before you ever use his ultimate. When you're using Powertron against Marauders, make sure you're using Ultron's basic after you summon the minions before you use the ultimate. And the reason why you want to do that is so you can steal the taunt off of Strife. War Machine's passive allows you, again, to bypass Strife's taunt. Use the basic of Ultron's speed bots when those down later in the fight to prevent Sinister and Emma from getting turns. So when it comes down to those minions, what I start to do is I stop putting out speed up and offense up, and I'll just use that basic. Not for the offense up one, but for the speed up one. And the reason why is because if you got 2 or 3 of them out there, you can prevent Emmas and Sinisters from getting a turn at all. Just make sure you're very cognizant of what bot coming up. Use that basic and, like I said, maintain the turn. Rescue is highly important now. I know she's kind of a boring character and the fact she doesn't do a lot of damage and she's just clearing debuffs, but in war she's really, really good. You'll find that her putting out offense up and immunity will really, really save you a lot of times, especially going against Marauders. So, and you'll really find that if Sinister clones your Rescue, you'll find her value real quick because they'll have immunity up and there's nothing you can do about it. So gear your rescue. Make sure she stays up. If she's staying up, then you're in really likely to win the fight. So, bringing on to the next team. Next team you have is everybody's favorite raid team, the Symbiotes, consisting of Scream, Venom, Carnage, Symbiote Spider-Man, and Anti-Venom. Now, these tend to be highly geared teams because they're raid teams. So more often than not, you're going to be punching down. But ISOing them for war and ISOing them for raids are two different things. I personally just keep them this way across the board because when it comes to raids, they do just fine. And you want vulnerabilities and damage and things like that out there. So I have Scream as a raider, I have Venom as a striker, I have Carnage as a striker, I have Symbiote Spider-Man as a raider because he hits everybody, and then I have Anti-Venom as a healer just because he's, while striker is great, I like him as a healer just to kind of keep everybody up and going. So this team right here, what they actually are going to do is they counter the Asgardians really, really well. They counter the Shield and Inhuman mix. They counter Hydra very well. They were, to my mind, one of the original ones back when Red Skull was a real pain, and you had no answer for them. They were just able to just kill things so fast and keep the speed bar on their time that they were an OG Hydra killer. They also do pretty well on Sinister Sticks. You gotta punch down on them, but it's again, you get to speed control and just put debuffs out there and things and kind of try to win that fight. Now the T4s that are going into Symbiote are important in this order. You want to have Symbiote Spider-Man's passive because you want to have the extra health. You want to have Carnage's passive because again, a lot of this is this is a very speed dependent team, so you want to have that extra speed out there. You want to have Symbiote Spider-Man's ultimate, so you get the 2-turn slow. You want to have his special, so you get the bleed. You want to have Symbiote Spider-Man's basic because the 2-for-turn defense down is so well. And for war purposes, having Anti-Venom's passive and ultimate is really, really helpful just because it's spreading everything out there. But I would recommend the basic and I would recommend the special just as well. It's just for war purposes. It's not an absolute have to have. So what's important to know about this team? The team is very speed and debuff heavy. Target minions and summons first to work on the speed bar. So basically, whenever Greg comes out, well, at first, start hitting Greg's. When Fury's doing his summon of minions, target the operative first, kill them, get the speed bar going, and just get heals and speed ups and all the things up there. It really gets them going is to kill the minions first. When going against defense up, make sure you use Carnage's ultimate on that opening move on the summon to confirm the kill. There is nothing worse than trying to use the basic coming up short and then having to use your second attack on it, and then at that point in time, your whole mechanics and flow of the fight is thrown off. So go ahead and use the ultimate if defensive up is out there just to be on the safe side. It's not a waste. You're getting that initial kill, which is much more important to have than worrying about using the ult wrong. Now, the limitations of this team is that it's got limited debuff clearing. Anti-Venom's the only one that really is clearing debuffs. So there's certain teams that can flip their, like Supernatural and things like that, can flip their debuffs against them and basically really hurt you. So just be cognizant of that. When you're going against teams, like don't send them against Emmas because Emmas will clear all their debuffs and things like that. So just be careful. They're blind dependent and things like that. It's just remember that's one of their weaknesses. Now, the good news about this team is that it's universally highly geared due to its raid usage. Everybody spent on Anti-Venom and everybody went crazy when they came out. So it's more often than not, you're going to be punching down with them, and that's okay. That's a good problem to have. So don't stress that too much. Find a good target for it, use them, and move on. The next team I have for you is going to be the Inhumans. Now, I love the Inhumans. The Inhumans were so underrated when they came out because everybody was worried about the number of stars they had on Yo-Yo and how to get her and yada, yada, yada. Yo-Yo does not have to be highly star dependent. It's very nice to have, but if you have her 4 or 5 stars and you got her geared enough and she's putting the offense down and it's landing, you're good. Like she's very dodge heavy, so she kind of can stand on her own. I currently have her as a skirmisher. Some people do her as a raider. The reason why I have her as a skirmisher is because it gives you that 1-2 punch with Black Bolt, being a striker. So when you get them in a combo, first of all, her basic's going to pull another Inhuman into attack. So you'll get Black Bolt coming in to assist, and then you'll have that third attack, and it's really, really nice. I have Quake as a skirmisher because you want to get her focused up so that her slows land. It's not the end of the world if they don't, but having her have getting slows out, that's really her main focus on the team. She's never really going to do a bunch of damage, but getting them slows to land is worth it, and getting the debuff clears in her special. So eventually getting her to level 5 and getting the extra focus is going to be important. Black Bolt is obviously a striker. He's just a monster of damage, so you want to have him hitting as many times as you can. I have Karnak as a skirmisher for 2 reasons. I want him clearing debuffs, and I also eventually want to have give him that extra focus, not for his ultimate, but I like to make sure that his slows land and his special really does help control the flow of the fight. And Crystal you want to have as a raider because Crystal is just multi-targeting everything, hitting multiple times. The more vulnerabilities out there, the better it's going to be for Black Bolt, so make Crystal your raider. So this team counters a lot, but counters Marauders. It pseudo counters Sinister Six, and I'll talk to that in a second. And it obviously kills Hydra because they can't res the minions, but it can punch across all Marauders. And this team I generally use as my safe to throw something at it team. And what I mean by that is you're occasionally you're gonna get to a point in war where you use your best attacks or you use your mid-tier attacks, and you're not really sure. Like it's a safe to throw it against an attack. It's not going to be your answer to a Black Order. It's not going to be your answer to a really big Marauders. So this team is really good to just punch into a 500k, 600k Marauders, depending on the gear level, and feel good about it. You know what I mean? Like this team is going to do a lot of damage. It's going to be a real fun fight, and as a result, like I said, this is going to be a real good workhorse. The T4s into this are not that massive that you need, but they do. It is heavy into Black Bolt. At this point in time, you probably have everything T4'd into Black Bolt anyway, but make sure you have Crystal's passive. That thing is highly underrated. It makes the heals go from 20% to 40% of her max health, which is their healing. But let me tell you, it is very, very important to have that one. The other one that's really important to have is Yo-Yo's basic, so that you're always getting an assist when she uses her basic, which, again, if you call in Black Bolt, it's well worth it. So that's what I would recommend for their tier 4s. Now, what's important to know about this team? Excuse me one second. Now, this team, what's important to know about them is that they are, in fact, farmable. Now, I know Yo-Yo is only available in the premium orbs. However, what you got to know about Yo-Yo is that, again, she does not need to be massive. It helps. It's not a requirement, though. You need her. She's all about offensive down and evades and dodges on her team. So it's less important that she be big from an attack perspective, more so than a survivability perspective. So don't stress that too much, but put the work into farming them. You're going to find that you got rewarded even at this stage in the game. They may not be the best war attack team yet, but they still are one of the best war attack teams. They are powerful. They can clear things you don't necessarily expect them to, because people kind of back in the day when Black Bolt was coming around, they didn't farm them. They kind of wrote it off because they couldn't get Yo-Yo high stars, and they were all upset about it, and they just kind of skipped it. Don't. The team is fantastic. Put some love into it. Again, they can punch across on Marauders. You know you're going to see Marauders out there. Having that extra clear is very, very good to have. So I recommend them. Now, what's important when you're sending against Sinister Six is this. Now, you're going to think, oh, I have Black Bolt. Doc Ock is villain tech. He's going to do fine. What you got to remember is that Doc Ock nullifies Yo-Yo. He gives out offense down resistance. Yo-Yo's main job as a tank is to put out offense down. So going into that fight, realize you're not going to be as survival as you once were. And as you're putting in damage on Doc Ock, factor that in, because Doc Ock is a pain. He's in war. He's healing himself like crazy. So just remember that going into that fight. And again, the Black Bolt and Yo-Yo combo is underrated for the most part. People have been making Yo-Yo Raider more, and so I love when I basic with Yo-Yo and Black Bolt comes in and smacks twice. It's just a great thing. Crystal is underrated. Again, people slept on her. She does a lot of damage. She puts slows out there. She puts bleeds out there. She heals them. You put that passive in, or T4 into her passive, and you're going to find her to be just an incredible character. Karnak, everybody hates. He's not that bad, though. All right. You're going to find that his ultimate, getting rid of the Strife Taunt, is fantastic. He puts slows out there. He removes counters. He's fantastic. He's not as bad as everybody thinks he's to be. Everybody hates on Karnak. Put some love into him. See what he can do, and you'll understand why I say that. Now, when it comes to Quake, again, it helps for her to be geared, but it's not the highest priority of the team. If you have everybody else kind of in a decent spot, Quake is just an addition. She's throwing out some focus for you, and then she's throwing out the occasional slow. But gear her last because it's Quake. What are you going to do with her? All right, so the next team I have for you is going to be the Uncanny X-Men. This is still a tried and true team. There's 6 members of it, so you kind of got to figure out which variation you want to use of them. It consists of Colossus, Wolverine, Cyclops, Psylocke, Phoenix, and Storm. I have Colossus as a fortifier, just because, he's a wall already, so might as well make him even stronger. Wolverine I have as a striker, Cyclops as a raider. Not necessarily that he does a lot of raiding, but when his ult goes off, you want it to crit, you want it to do as much damage as possible. And so I personally like him as a raider as opposed to a striker. Psylocke I have as a skirmisher simply because she's very buff and removal and debuff and plays with those a lot. So I like to have those extra clears from her. Phoenix I have as a striker for the extra damage, and Storm I have as a raider just because everything she does is hitting multiple people. So this team counters a lot. Less and less of the important teams as it gets a little bit down the line, but it's still a fantastic team, still clears a lot of the things you're going to face. It can beat the Asgardians very easy. It can beat Marauders pretty easily. Now, that's going to be dependent on a lot of things, like whether or not you're going to defense down. But generally, as a whole, X-Men is what I use first and foremost to kill mercenaries. It's not a waste to do so, and they punch across and up very, very well. They also can kill S.H.I.E.L.D. back if you need them to. They can kill Brawlers and Avengers if you need them to. But generally, I like to use them on mercenaries because you're going to see them, and frankly, there's not a true other team that needs X-Men. So the most bang for your buck is going to take out the mercenaries. The T4's in them was going to be Cyclops passive, Phoenix's passive, Phoenix's ultimate, Phoenix special, Cyclops ultimate, Cyclops passive, and Storm's passive. Colossus passive is going to be there. So the reason why you want to have Cyclops passive is because you want to have him getting 2 stacks of his charge. You want to have Phoenix's passive just because it's fantastic. Same thing with the ult, a lot of damage. You want to steal extra health with the special. And Cyclops ultimate, you just wanted to have it hit like a truck. Colossus passive and Storm passes are nice to have. They really do. Coming in with 2 turns defense up, and defense up on Colossus really helps the X-Men as a whole. And speed up, the additional speed up chance for an assist from Storm is really, really nice to have if you can afford it. So what's important to know about this team, again, is that there are multiple variations of this team. You can use Astonishing X-Men in there. You can throw X-23 in there now. So while I wouldn't recommend doing that in war, you can. So look at your matchup, look what you're fighting, and then adjust accordingly. If you're going to send X-Men against a Black Order through desperation, don't put Storm and Beast in there because, again, don't put Storm in there because you're going to have a second hero controller, which is going to make Ebony Maw work so much better. That's one of those deals where you swap out Psylocke and things like that. The team is going to win or lose on Phoenix's ultimate. By the time you've done Phoenix's ultimate, you're going to know, okay, do I got to do cleanup or was this not enough? And if the Phoenix ultimate comes in late or not at all, you're kind of in trouble. So while this team fell out of the meta because they needed new things to sell us, it's still a really, really solid attack team. Clearing mercenaries is a big part of war offense. You're going to see them. And without having to waste a Black Order on them, it's really nice to just throw the X-Men in there, find a solid use for them, and move on about your day. The good news is that if you are lucky enough to get the Phoenix or to get Cyclops' ultimate and then Phoenix's ultimate off at this, more or less everything dies. So if you can get that going, you pretty much won. So keep that in mind. Now, this brings us to the final tier of the attack teams. These are the teams that counter the best war defenses out there currently. You only use them on the toughest of targets. Save them. Gear them to as much as you can to level 80 to gear 14 and above. 664 all their abilities, and then put all the important T4s into them depending on what the character is and what it needs. But gearing these two teams you're not going to be wasting anything by doing so. These are fantastic teams and will be so for a while. I highly recommend you keep putting love into them as much as you can. Gold star them as much as you can. Get them to 5 stars as much as you can. Use the silver promo credits on them. Get the whole team up because these are your absolute best attacks right now. So the first team I have for you, I'm pretty sure you can guess, is going to be X-Force. X-Force is a fun and fantastic war offense team. It is the best straight up war offense team, like designed for war offense as opposed to all around team. It consists of Domino, Negasonic, Deadpool, Cable, and X-23. Domino, you want to absolutely have Skirmisher for when you're sending this team against Marauders or anything like that. Her disrupt landing is very, very important. So get the extra focus on her, get the gear on her, make sure that disrupt lands. And then next you're going to have is Negasonic, who you want to have a Raider so she hits everybody and puts as many vulnerabilities out there as you can. Her special hits multiple people, her ult hits multiple people. You want her as a Raider. Now, the next three, it's kind of going to come down to dealer's choice on what you personally prefer. I like them set up this way. I like having Deadpool as a striker, and I like having Cable as a skirmisher, just because, again, they get the assist, and because you want to have some vulnerabilities out there, and you want to, like, Deadpool being as geared and cheap, it's really nice to have him just kind of get that second attack and finish off somebody. Same thing with X-23 as a striker. She can do great as a Raider, but I find that when you get down to the ends of some fights and you're going against an Emma, and it's like Emma versus X-23, that second attack can kill her through the heels and kill her through the diamond form and things like that. So I like mine as a striker. Now, what's important, what can this team beat? Mainly, I use this team to kill Marauders, although it does fantastic against Sinister Six, it does fantastic against Mercenaries, and it also does fantastic against the Asgardians. It was originally designed to kill the Asgardians when it first came out. It really makes short work of them, but Asgardians aren't really the main use for them anymore. I send mine against Marauders. I have the fight down pretty pat, and I find the best use for them is to kill a higher end Marauders team. T4s you're going to want into them for them to be war viable. It's going to be X-23's passive, X-23's ultimate, Domino's passive, Negasonic's passive, Negasonic's ult, and X-23 special. That's what you would need to actually like, hey, this is going to be able to do the things you wanted to do. But you can also do, Domino's ultimate if you'd like. It does really good damage. You can do her passive if you like. It makes Deadpool go a little bit faster, but it's not necessarily need to have to do the job. So what's important to know about this team is that they are farmable. I highly recommend you farm them as much as you can. They get them to 7 stars, get them war operating, and you will not regret it. They're one of the best war offensive teams that exist right now. They are highly fun to play. They are really, really strong, and they will answer a lot of your problems you have. Domino is important to gear if you intend them to kill Marauders. So the reason why I say that is because it's highly, highly important that her Disrupt lands on Strife. If you can get that to land on Strife, you've won the fight. So if you miss that, you're really kind of risking it. So make sure Domino's geared up. She's not going to do the most damage, but she is going to determine whether or not you win or lose a lot. So the next thing you're going to want to know is that if using them to kill Sinister Six, just cut the BS and go straight for Doc Ock. Ability lock him, disrupt him, just send everything at him, because the second you kill Doc Ock, he won't, well, the second you go at Doc Ock as hard as you can, he won't be able to summon, he won't be able to heal, he won't be able to do anything, and if you can drop him fast enough, you've already won the fight. So Doc Ock is still one of those guys that has a lot of problems for people. If you're going to use your X-Force on them, just wipe him out the door before he ever starts going. If you use him against Marauders, again, you're going to want to land the Disrupt on Strife, and then you're going to want to target Sinister. Do those two things, get Sinister off the board, you're going to win the fight. All right, so that leads me to the next and best war offense team, the Black Order. Now, the Black Order is beatable. However, it is going to be your answer to everything. It is still the best in arena. It's still the best in war. It's going to be the thing that scares everybody. It's the thing everybody dumps all their resources into. So you having your Black Order strong and ready to go on war offense will counter a lot of Black Orders on defenses and Marauders and Sinister Sixes and all these things. Now, the beauty part about having Black Order on offense is that it can punch up a lot. You control the fight, and it is hands down, for my money, the best war offense team there is. I have Proxima as a skirmisher. I have Ebony Maw as a skirmisher. I have Corvus Glaive as a striker. I have Thanos as a raider, and I have Call Obsidian as a striker, because every time he counters twice. That seems to be working fantastic for me. I've done punch-ups as much as 210K with this team. So I highly recommend this setup with these guys. So who does Black Order counter? Again, everybody. They can beat anything out there. I'm sure they're going to have a counter for them soon, a Black Order killer, but as of yet, at the time of this video, there's not a team that they can't beat. The T4s that are important in them, hold on, before I go any further, while they can beat everything, you only really want to use this team against Black Orders, Marauders, and perhaps a really high mercenary. But mercenaries, again, my money, I'm going to go to X-Men first, and then it'd have to be like a 700K plus for me to worry about bringing a Black Order into it for mercenaries. So when you're using them, again, I recommend only Black Orders, only high Marauders. Now, the T4s you're going to want to have in them are Thanos' special, because the flip is the most important thing. You're going to want to have Ebony Maw special, because you want to have that defense up for 2 turns. You want to have the Corvus Glaive passive, because you want to have the extra damage. Call Obsidian's passive. Ebony Maw's ultimate for the speed and drain. You're going to have Thanos' ultimate, because the ultimate is really where the damage is going to be done. Across the board, as you know, Thanos' ultimate is just really, really badass. And then you want to have, nice to have is Call Obsidian's ultimate, because it just hits like a truck if you get to that point. Now, what do you need to know about the Black Order? That they are farmable, all except Call, but Call is, we just got those Valiant Orbs out there. So a lot of people have him close to 7, if not at 7. So everybody else is farmable. Maul's farmable, Proxima, Corvus, and it's not going to be too long before Call's available too. They're going to put him in the War Store, I bet. But as of right now, I would consider them farmable. They're the hardest hitting team. They're the ones that you want to put all your gear into and make them a monster because they still are just that good of a team. They beat anything. The flip is still 90% of the fight, meaning that as long as you're flipping after they're doing whatever ability they have, you're going to win. So if you flip after their Black Order flips, you're going to win. If you flip after their Emma blinds, you're going to win. And if you flip off, or if you flip the taunt on Mercenary Riot Guard, you're going to be able to get at Taskmaster and kill him and then end that fight. So when you're facing the Black Order with this team, target Proxima or Glaive first. They're the squishiest. I would target Proxima first because Glaive can stealth, but the second you take out one of the Black Order, the next person at the very least is not going to have to face an empowered one. But if you take out Proxima first, you're going to, again, have the pace of the fight at your terms, and you're going to do just fine. When you're fighting Emmas, the first thing, you hold the flip until after she blinds. You're going to flip the blind back, and at that point in time, they're going to have done all their little tricks and stuff like that, to the point that I found have been the best point of time to do the flip when facing Marauders. Mercenaries, again, it's just all about getting the taunt off with Riot Guard so you can kill Taskmaster, and it can do massive punch-ups into the Black Order. All right, you can have a 600k Black Order take down a 700. All right, you can have a 400 to take down a 500 and more and more and more. It's all about the flip. If you control the flip, you're going to control the fight. So, what about the missing teams? There are 2 missing teams that that I left off this list, and the reasons why is this. Skilletary still needs to be reworked. All right, at this point in time, it stinks. Scopely says that they're going to fix them. I'm curious to see what they do about it. If they do, Skilletary could be on this list as a possible 12th, a possible placement for another one of these teams. I would put it ultimately in probably tier 2 at this point, just to see what it does. Depending on where you're at with your T4s and stuff like that, I got hopes they fix it, but right now it's really going to depend on what Scopely does with it. So Skilletary is off this list until we know more. Now, the Fantastic Four is still a great offensive team. It's the other one I left off this list, but it's become more of a defensive team. Not that it does great on defense. She-Hulk's just all right, but generally as a whole, the counters that Fantastic Four used to beat were kind of nullified by ISO. So it still can do some work, but it's for me, I just left them on. I find other uses for them as opposed to War Offense. I still love the team. It's a great team. It was one of my favorite teams, but it just kind of fell out of favor when ISO came around because it just didn't scale right to what they were usually beating. Now, there is the potential as Doom comes back because he has some synergy with them that it becomes more common or more possible for it to return to offense as Doom gets more and more out there. But at this point in time, I left them off this list because I don't think they are what they once were, and there's better options. You're still limited with the number of attacks, and in those number of attacks, you want to get the most bang for the buck. All right. So I want to thank you very much for watching this long video. I really, really hope that it was helpful to some way. There are going to be more videos coming in this Warrior College series to help you out. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button on it. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm not doing this for monetary. I just really want to get the information out there, and I'm having fun doing so. So if you could share it with your alliance, share it with your friends. If you found this helpful, really would appreciate it. And if you have any comments or to anything I put out there, or if you have any questions or suggestions, please put it in the comments and let me know. I'll answer you. I'll give you my feedback or whatever it is. And like I said, the intent is just to help you. So again, we're going to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.